Hey everyone, it's Dan here from Wellness Academy. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today's guest is Chris Williamson. Chris is perhaps most well known for his appearance on Love Island, but continues to become more and more well known as the outstanding host of the outstanding podcast Modern Wisdom, where he's had, like me, the opportunity to speak to hundreds of amazingly influential, inspiring, intelligent, knowledgeable guests. And Chris took the time out to come on the podcast with me and share some of what he's learned both through his own life, his own experiences, his own growth, and also what he's learned from other guests on his show. I bring this episode to you a few weeks or so, several weeks after we recorded, in the current midst of, the coronavirus epidemic. You're unsure of what really to do, myself as an individual, when it comes to what to post and when to post it and how to share it. But kind of the show must go on, and I hope that those of you guys that listen to this can find something positive to take in this kind of negative time. I hope you enjoy. Share it where you can, listen where you can, like and subscribe where you can. And I'll keep these episodes coming to you with these amazing guests. And, stay safe, everyone. So, Chris Williamson, welcome to the Wellness Academy podcast.
Thank you.
I know you're a crazy busy guy. I know you've already been podcasting today. So thank you so much for taking the time out to do this. I really appreciate it.
Daniel, it's a pleasure, mate. Thank you for having me on. Strange to be on the other side of the microphone for once.
Yeah, I reached out. After we've got essentially a mutual friend, Tricky Ricky, whose podcast, we're recording today, the 29th of Jan 2020. His podcast will be out over the next 2 or 3 weeks, so I'm excited for people to hear that. And obviously, you not long ago shared part of your American road trip on your YouTube channel that you did with him. And one of the things I was really surprised to hear about was that was like the first time you guys had spent any extended time together.
Yeah, it was fortunate. We decided we were going to do like a 10-day road trip followed by a 4-day lake house visit, having never spent more than about 2 hours with each other before, and then lived out of each other's pockets for 2 weeks and got on like a house on fire. Didn't have a single disagreement. There's not many people on the planet that I could say I could do that with.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. His as I was saying to you, his podcast is like, I just love his authenticity, and he's just real. He's just a real dude, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a great guy.
So if people aren't into the podcast world, if people aren't out and about in Newcastle at some of your events, and if people have never watched or heard of Love Island, maybe they don't know Chris Williamson. So give us a bit of a brief background as to who you are, what you do, how you got where you are, the concise version, if that's
I got you. Yeah, I was going to say it could take a little while. So big 30,000 foot view from Middlesbrough originally. I don't tend to say that. From Middlesbrough originally, moved to Newcastle for university, started a business pretty much as soon as I arrived, started running clubs, nightclubs, promoting events, worked my way up from flyer boy to company director, started my own company with my business partner. We got our first franchise at 19, started our first weekly club night at 23, did a master's in international marketing after having done a bachelor's in business. Did a placement year where we worked for ourselves, nearly got kicked out of Scotland and our personal licenses revoked by Parliament in Scotland. That was fun. Then kind of really got absorbed into the club promoter wanker scene, very much attached my sense of identity to being a club promoter, to my success as a club promoter, which had some positives and also had some side effects that took a little while for me to kind of realize. Then I went and did Take Me Out. That was fun. Got to meet Paddy McGuinness. Went on the Isle of Fernandos. Got taken home by the Guardia Civil after my night out there. Woke up on the central reservation of Tenerife's largest motorway. Got taken home by the police. That was interesting. What came next? Continued club promoting. Then 4.5 years ago, did Love Island season 1, first person through the doors of the Villa, Love Island season 1, did that. That was fun, got a great tan, got a free holiday, got a blue tick on Twitter, all the big ones.
Life
and,
goal.
yeah, all in one go. Did that, then had a little bit of an epiphany while I was there, and in kind of the post-show stuff, kind of realized that the person that I thought I was, this big dick promoter guy around town, kind of wasn't really me, wasn't fulfilling me. So went on a bit of an introspective journey, started exposing myself to some more mindful content that I felt nourished me. Went on my first podcast with the guys from Propane Fitness, who are my two best mates. Was a guest on there, loved it, really enjoyed the format, wanted to do it more, thought I can do it more if I start my own podcast. Started my own podcast, Modern Wisdom, 2 years ago. And that's kind of been the main passion project I've had since then until now. 1.4, 1.5 million downloads or something like that now, 130 plus episodes. And yeah, that's it. Still promoting, still filling nightclubs, still doing the Instagram influence wanky stuff, still modeling. Now doing the podcast twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. I get to speak to literally the most fascinating humans on the planet. And I've just released an online course called 6 Months Sober, which guides people through sobriety to use for productivity. I use sobriety as a productivity the same way as you might use a strength cycle as a tool for an athlete. I use dropping out alcohol in the same way to enhance my own productivity. And that brings us up to this moment right here, where I am talking to you, Daniel.
Wow. You talk about life goals, talking to a guy that you never heard of before about a week ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. There's a couple of really cool things in there that I'm sure we could make the podcast about, crazy shit that Chris Williamson's done in his life, but that wasn't my intention, so we won't touch on that.
Cool.
But I am interested, one thing you just said, which I do find interesting. So my day job, I teach karate and kickboxing, have done since I was 18. So it's like coming up on 16 years now. And I've often found it difficult to detach myself from that identity. Do you know what I mean? Like that my work, I am a martial arts instructor. I am a martial artist. And yeah, like you hear people talk about how when you say, who are you? And they're like, oh, I'm an engineer. Like they attach themselves to the understanding of their job. Mm-hmm. You know, you mentioned, of course, that you'd found that your identity was you were a club promoter. Do you find yourself doing that now with the podcasting? Do you say I'm a podcast host?
It's a really timely question, this, mate. So I was at a party on Monday in London, a place called Annabelle's, which is this next level A-lister club. Vivienne Westwood was there. Margot Robbie was there. It's where Bruce Willis goes when he's in town or whatever, apparently. I'm just down there I got invited down by a buddy, so I totally shouldn't have been there, snuck in the back door, kind of. And you're going around, and there's like Lord Seb Coe and his wife were there. And you get introduced to Lord Seb Coe's wife. And she says, oh, so what do you do? And I'm like, well, what are you supposed to say to that question? Because what people want to know is what takes up what people mean with that question is, what's your profession? What do you do for work? But the more interesting question is, or what I would want to ask people is sort of, what's your main passion in life? Because those two things don't always align. Sometimes they do, but they don't always. And I struggled to answer that question. And my friend George, who I took with me, was laughing at my discomfort as someone would say, so what do you do? How do I say all of the different plates that I've got spinning without underselling the rest of them and pigeonholing myself into one thing, which I definitely don't just do one thing, but then also like entrepreneur, that's a word that's just been ruined by Silicon Valley.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Podcaster's actually more of that's a pipe dream / passion that doesn't pay the bills. That's not what gets the mortgage over my head. Club promoter makes me sound like a twat. Like it's a minefield. It's a minefield for me. But like when someone says sort of, what do you do? I think, I'm a business owner. That's what I do. I do marketing. But yeah, to come back to the question about self-identity, I no longer identify as a club promoter in terms of how I see myself. My persona is not that of a club promoter, but it was for a very, very long time. And it's interesting to watch yourself move through these different epochs of your life, right? And sometimes people drag you back. Sometimes there's people from your past life that don't want you to move on, that want you to change, and with good reason. You know, they might see you slowly becoming an alcoholic, or slowly cheating on your wife, or do whatever it might be. But then other times it's more because they don't like the fact that someone could be getting away from them and doing different things. So it's very messy, very, very messy to strip the persona, to continue to just allow that persona to fall away, and for the ego to not be fed anymore. And that's been a real challenge, because especially if you are, this is going to sound like a Tucker Max humble brag here, but if you are someone who's a little bit clever, you can tell yourself such convincing lies about who you are, what your values are. And you're like, right, okay, is this the truth? Am I telling myself that I am this person because that's actually who I am? Or am I telling myself this because I am giving myself a proxy for the truth that I can swallow, so that I don't actually need to uncover the more uncomfortable truth about who I really am? So the question that you asked sounded really simple. It's actually very, very challenging to answer, and incredibly nuanced, Daniel.
Clearly, I'm much smarter than even I realise that I am. That must be what.
I mean, that's precisely what it is.
Did you? So, based on what you've said, understandably, that's obviously something that can be a consistent challenge. Because you could easily go, "Oh, I'm not a club promoter anymore," but then pigeonhole yourself, like you say, as a podcaster, or this, or that, or the other. I guess I'm not necessarily saying that it's a bad thing if you identify as your job, if especially your job is what you're passionate about. But then if you want to live a well-rounded life, popular opinion can be that you do need to separate from your job. So what do you do to manage all these plates, to keep them all spinning? Because I mean, just from watching you on social media, I know you've got the club promoting that you do. I know you've got the podcast, and I'm already clocking on to how challenging that can be. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure you'll agree with me, it's a fantastic hobby, if nothing else, to begin with. I mean, we both get the privilege. I've got the privilege of speaking to you. This is freaking awesome. And, you know, so on and so forth. But if you care about something, you want to do it well, you can start to put pressures on yourself to do it well, can't you? Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, what's it look like trying to manage several things at once, including a social media account, which for some people is a full-time job, and trying to keep your head screwed on?
It's challenging, man. You know, I don't pretend like I've got it figured out for how I can act, but I know how I should operate. Naval Ravikant's got this beautiful quote, and he says, "Play stupid games, win stupid prizes." What that means is, what is the goal of winning on whatever your chosen pursuit is? And if your chosen pursuit is like, right, I'm going to spend, you know, an hour a week, or 2 hours a week, or 5 or 10 hours a week randomly DMing fit birds on Instagram, like, tell me what the prize is. Play stupid games. That is a fucking stupid game. Win stupid prizes. Yet we all do it. Those of us that are in relationships all do it. Not in relationships. Fuck me, I nearly put my foot in it there. And I'm single. You get my point, right? Like, you need to pick your battles. And this is something I'm really struggling with. So something that I found that's really useful, and it might be useful for some of the people that are listening, is to define your core values. Anyone that listens to Chasing Excellence by Ben Bergeron will know this.
You did this on your Instagram, and it was the one thing I messaged you, and I said I didn't know how to do. So cool. You shared a lot of stuff. I did all of it except for this. Amazing that you brought it up.
Cool, man.
Go for it.
Serendipity kind of acts like that sometimes.
Yeah.
So, what are the core values you have in your life? If you search Taylor Pearson core values, that is all that you'll need to find out the exercise that I did. I actually added a couple of extra bits on. Bottom line is, your core values are the things that you will not compromise on no matter what. They are the guiding principles that work below everything you do, and they are the sky that sits above your goals as well. Your goals are indicative, or should be indicative, of what your values are. And mine, interestingly, spelled out a word. They're an acronym, and it's spelled out CASES. So it was curiosity, to be curious, to engage with different and interesting people, adventure, to have new and novel experiences, to meet different people, A word I made up, selfless development, which was to learn about myself and the world around me, and to then broadcast that to other people so that they can as well. E was excellence, precision with my thoughts, words, and actions, making the most of minutes. I want to fulfill my potential. And then the final one was self-care. I need to look after myself in order to be able to do everything else. And this is from Taylor Pearson's got a list of 70 of these things, right? And I just chose 5. Like, you're supposed to get it down to 5. Ben Bergeron's, all of his begin with L. It's like love, legacy, something. But yes, I did that, and I was like, right, okay, like I need to ensure that everything that I'm doing feeds into that, and that was if there's someone out there who thinks, right, I'm a little bit sort of lost or confused or whatever it is, there's a million different things that could be causing that, but one potential route to at least give you a tiny bit of clarity in this incredibly messy digital world that we live in is to define your core values, and it'll take about, if you do it really, really well, it'll take a couple of hours of your time, and then everything will get reframed around that. Everything will become reframed around what these core values are.
Amazing. There you go. Now I know. I can add that to the list of things that I did at the start of the year. So another thing that I find very interesting, having followed you as I have. So, like, speaking of like Love Island, wouldn't surprise me if you're fed up of talking about it. So it isn't something I was keen to go into. Like,
you feel free. The world is your oyster.
I think the only series I watched was when Chris and Cam were on. It was freaking...
I think that's the second one. I think that was the one after me.
Yeah,
the third.
They were so entertaining. Like that, you think Love Island, and the lasting relationship has been Chris and Cam's in terms of like several years on or whatever. And I know you did a podcast talking about your experience on. It's on my list of ones to listen to, just out of curiosity, if nothing else. But just like, I guess one thing I do how does one end up on that show? Outside of, from an envious perspective, you're a bloody good-looking bloke.
Oh,
so like that's part of what's helped.
I've already mentioned that I'm single on this podcast. So if there's any ladies that agree with you, my email address will be in the show notes below. I'll send it to you once we're finished. So I got scouted. I'd done Take Me Out. The same casting agent that was working on that, ITV, like all these big shows are very kind of incestuous with the way that they kind of move people around. The guy that put me on one said, hey man, I got this new show coming up, do you want to come and cast for it? And I got fast tracked through. I did like 3 things, and then before I knew it, I was stepping into the villa. Like, that was it basically. So the more people apply for Love Island than apply to Oxford and Cambridge University combined every year. So it's like, well,
welcome to 2020,
mate, there you go. But I mean, in their defense, 2 million followers will get you more than a degree from Oxford or Cambridge ever would. So,
Oh, I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing. I mean, I tell people when I teach, kids and teenagers, and they're talking about their GCSE results and their A levels, I try and remind them, look, you're born in a time now where they're not the end of the world if you haven't got those, whatever they are now, 1s and 2s. People make a fortune now from teaching other people how to play Fortnite, from playing Minecraft on a YouTube channor, or for teaching women how to put makeup on. That, like, you can do whatever you want now.
Monetize anything, man.
Yeah. So we talked briefly before we pressed record, segue in. I find it extremely interesting that somebody can go from a club promoter, and you I can't remember the phrase you use now. Club wanker, I think you might have said.
Club promo wanker, yeah.
That lifestyle, that kind of day-to-day habits that you formed, that reality that became your consistent day-to-day life, to go on Love Island, to come off that and have this realization, to then go into doing a podcast called Modern Wisdom, wonderfully and aptly named, by the way.
Thank you.
And speak to guests that are, as you said, amazingly interesting. And one thing I've loved about your podcast so far is that the broad spectrum of people that you've spoken to, the different, and I actually sit there, because I now do this, going, how the bloody hell did he even think to interview that?
But sorry, to interject there, like, think about what I said were some of my core values. Like,
Yeah.
the first letter is C for curiosity,
Curiosity.
right? Like I realized upon 31 years, nearly 32, of reflection, that curiosity, I'm just so inquisitive about stuff, and I always thought it was I don't know, like something not to be ashamed of, but something that got in the way, or I just thought it was me. I thought it was being nosy, like I'd reframed it wrong. I'm like, nah, like I want to talk to a guy, David Pearce, who's one of the foremost intellects on how biotechnology will affect the transhumanism movement as we move forward into being a post-human civilization. Like, I want to learn from that guy, or I want to learn. I've got Heather Berlin coming on soon, and I'm going to ask her, what is consciousness? Explain to me how matter is able to understand its own existence, just the sheer proliferation of matter in a very specific way that makes up our brain. Or I want to ask Douglas Murray about why the woke movement is reframing gender roles, or I want to, like, I want to ask all of these people things, and that's kind of what's guided me through everything. But yeah, sorry, you hadn't even finished your question. I just put it in.
You need Neil deGrasse Tyson or Brian Cox on your show, mate, for sure.
Brian would be good. I took my mum to go see Brian Cox. He's a G.
I went to watch him in March, Manchester last year.
Leeds.
Okay. I had to switch off at some points. I'm not intelligent enough to understand some of what he talked about, but
looked pretty though.
I started to pick it up near the end. Yeah, that was super cool. The fact that they had the guys that did the graphics for Interstellar. That was amazing. So essentially, what I was going to ask you is, give us an idea of that transition. Okay, so someone that, would it be fair to say that one of the main things you cared about on a weekly basis was getting drunk?
No, that would be wrong. So I've never been a big drinker. Like even back when I was sort of full club promo wanker, I've always been into fitness, which has meant that it's kind of been a kite that I've been attached to that's pulled me through various different bits of my life. There's few things I've carried with me through everything, but one of the things that I've carried with me through everything has been fitness. So yeah,
Okay. My apologies that I was wrong about that. That's a misconception.
No, not at all. And again, I played that role, right? The point was, like, if you bought it, that's the reason I did it. Like, I tried to give out, I'm this big promo, like, guy around town, like, big dick warrior, you know my name, blah, do you want guest list, mate? Like, that's what I wanted. I wanted that particular, because I thought that was who people wanted. I thought that was who I was. I arrived at uni with not a tremendously concrete formed sense of self. And I think a lot of people, there might be some young people listening to this who are like, you just limpet your identity onto the first thing that you become competent or involved in when you become an adult. And you're a karate instructor, how much of your life is wrapped around that? You get me? So I'm like, right, okay, well, it comes back to the question, all this is linked. It comes back to the question we said at the start. Someone says to you, what do you do? It's like, oh, karate instructor, club promoter. It's like, what are you asking? Are you asking what is my biggest objective measure of success? Are you asking what is the most quantifiable metric that I can say to you gives me some sort, like, signals that I'm some sort of, like, well-to-do person in life? Or are you asking what my passions are? Because you can ask someone, what do you do? You can say, oh, I'm an accountant. But they might equally say, I'm a dad with 2 beautiful kids. And you're like, fuck me. Both of those questions are perfect. Both those answers are perfectly apt. So anyway, attach my sense of identity to that. Then it was kind of got real poisonous, and I stopped my identity being attached to the involvement I had in the business, and then it was just to the success. Then that went further, and it stopped being about the success of the business. It started being about my suffering associated with the business itself. So if we'd had a successful night, but I hadn't suffered, like I hadn't felt tired, I hadn't felt like I'd really drained myself, I didn't feel worthy of the success. I didn't feel like it was a worthwhile night. I felt like I'd got the success too easily somehow. It's called a Puritan work ethic, right? It's you can imagine that you've got these priests back in the Middle Ages who are doing the self-flagellation. It's in tribute to God, right? They're hoeing the gardens all day, sun burning on their back, and it
Yeah.
wasn't. It was in tribute to God. The work, the suffering was in tribute to God, not the result. And you can just see like this thing's messy, right?
The opposite, work smart, not hard, right?
It was just work painful, presume good. That was it. Like so yeah, that was a messy situation for me, and unpacking that still now takes a lot of time for me to kind of unpack, and I keep on putting different flavors on that with the podcast. Like anyway, so yeah, and then there's a point that everyone gets to, and again, there'll be some fitness people listening, maybe that you've got as an audience, and I'd be interested to know if they have come across what I call the fitness menopause, which is in someone's late 20s, if they've entered the gym and started on a bodybuilding or aesthetics split, and then towards their late 20s have realized they're chronically aware of their own mortality as they approach 30 years old, and they think, fucking hell, I can't touch my toes here. Like I get out of breath walking up a hill. Like, I need to do something more holistic. And then they pivot and they start to do yoga. They start to do CrossFit. They start to do martial arts. They start to do HIIT classes. They start to do Pilates and meditation and more self-care. They read. They remember that they used to read when they were 11, and now they start to read again. They start to consume podcasts again, right? So this fitness menopause actually ties in with a bigger change that I think a lot of people go through, which is where they just realize that they've kind of lost their way a little bit. You're quite pure when you're sort of between the age of 8 and 12. I mean, not being from Middlesbrough, I'm about as unpure as you can get, but like you're very innocent.
Pure of heart, for want of a better saying, right?
Yeah, pure of heart but not of blood. I think that's the way it goes. So and then you kind of you unless you're incredibly strong, a very, very strong sense of self and persona, and incredibly sort of well cemented and established in who you are for the next 10 years? Do you know what I mean? Until the age of, fuck me, it was 27 when I really started to look at myself and go, right, what's all of this extra material that's outside of you that you've constructed on top of yourself over the last sort of 10 years of your life? What is all of this? You kind of start clawing away at it. So that was that. And then, I just, I realized that I wasn't nourishing myself in a way that was truthful and honest to me and who I am. And I needed to fix it. There was a problem, and I didn't know what the problem was, and I didn't know what the answer was. I literally didn't even know the question that I was trying to answer, but I knew that there was something there. And over time, I realized I hadn't been telling the truth a lot. And that's not like little white lies about where were you last night. It's just like I literally didn't know my own opinion on anything. They'd be like, what do you think of that TV show? And I'd be like, good. And I'd just wait for the response, because I'd become so hyper personaed, so hyper personified, I suppose you could say. I'd created persona upon persona upon persona around myself that I hoped would make me either successful in business or liked by people that were in town or whatever it might be, right? People do it because they're at heart, they're unconfident in who they are. They don't feel like they're worthy of love themselves. It's like I at my core of my being am not worthy of love by someone, so I need to change the flavor that they're tasting. And I was like, fuck. Like, that's a really ugly thing to see when you realize, because the implication is so, it is so deserving of empathy, right? You think, fuck, like if this kid came up to you and said, hey, mister, like some kid in your class comes up to you and says, hey, Daniel, I'm really not very confident and I don't feel very well liked by people in school. Your heart breaks and you're like, oh my God, like, come here, dude, you're awesome. Like, you do this well and you do that well, and you've had the fucking guts to come tell me this. And you're like, oh my God, like it's so worthy of compassion. And then you realize, fuck, I've layered so many personas on top of myself that I couldn't even access the vulnerability and the compassion and the sympathy that I deserved from other people. Long fucking drawn out thing, right? So anyway, tell the truth, start telling the truth, start doing other stuff, start spending time with people who I care about and who are good for me and who make me feel interested And don't be ashamed of some of the interests I've got. You know, it's not like bum stuff. It's like like space and like nature and going out on walks and genuinely caring about my fitness and
shit that people care about and people can talk about when they're post 30 that's apparently not interesting or cool to talk about when you're pre 30, right?
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I definitely think you hit the nail on the head when you said that you spend. I remember when I was like 18, 19, I thought I was an adult. Like how fucking wrong I was. Do you know what I mean? Like I wasn't even an adult at 21, 22, 23, 24. And I have experienced being a martial arts instructor, that classic that women grow up faster than men. Like I've seen many a female student be much more mature earlier on in life than the male students. And I definitely was that. I don't even, and like I'm not sitting here pretending I've got my shit together either. Do you know what I mean? Some of what you said then, to blink my eyes and not burst into tears on a podcast. But yeah, like there's a guy I interviewed who is so funny because you mentioned a bunch of names then a minute ago that you talked to, and I'm like, who's that? Some of the best people that you've talked to, some of the best people that I've talked to, no one has a clue who they are. And there's a guy I interviewed, and it was a big deal. A chap named Peter Sage, who lots of people have heard of, lots of people haven't. He was once the youngest member of Tony Robbins' seminar staff.
All right, that's kind of cool.
And a friend, like long story short, because this isn't a podcast to promote Peter Sage, but a friend of mine is really close with him, and one of Pete's many, 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 many wisdoms is that the universal fear of all people is that the fear of not being good enough. Like you boil it down, that's what it comes down to. I'm afraid of not being good enough. And, I don't know how much you've deep dived into trying to cure all this stuff. I'm hopefully getting a friend on the podcast who is involved in, I think you would call it meta health or metakinetics.
All right.
And she practices a model of medicine that is apparently the biopsychosocial model. And we did some form of kinesiology together, like muscle testing me and some weird shit, man. But I'm on this like therapy bed that's apparently got this magnetic thing underneath it that costs $3,000 from Germany that vibrates at this frequency and does this and does that. And I'm crying my eyes out, and we come up with this pattern that I'm apparently running, which is that when people don't the scenarios are numerous, but essentially if I feel shut out, I feel unwanted, I feel isolated, it leads me to want to shout, but then I don't because I'm afraid that people will do those things again, and I set myself in this crazy. Why I'm talking about this, I don't know. But my point would be,
it's good, right? So let's just pause on this because I think it's a really important point. I appreciate as well you opening up on your own podcast. I know how difficult that can be, right? It's easy as a guest for me to just fucking come in. You're supposed to be the host. So I think that open vulnerability is real good thing. There's some pretty good evidence that shows actually that human beings don't derive any net positive from pleasure. And that in fact all that we do is avoid pain. So we are pain avoidance machines, and there's some fairly robust neuroscience that goes behind that, which I absolutely can't quote. But it's that I promise you, I once read a book that said that. So my point is that we all like avoiding pain more than we like chasing pleasure. Yeah. And what that means is everyone will know this, right? It's like, remember the losses, forget the glories. Like that's how life rolls, right? That is just unfortunately the way that the cookie crumbles. And
have you read the genetic thing about that? The claim that that's due to the idea that when we were cavemen, we didn't remember the one cave that had the saber-toothed tiger in it. We would get killed because we.
It's definitely fitness enhancing from an evolutionary perspective. It's fitness enhancing for you to be prudent rather than risk taking. So if you're risk averse, you're right. Like it's an existential threat that kills your life if you go into a new cave because there might be something that kills you in there. There might be some food which makes you a bit more alive, but if there's some predator which makes you a lot more dead, that's a bad situation. So it's fitness in evolutionary speak. It's fitness enhancing to be prudent and to be risk averse. But yeah, man, you're right with what you say. Like, we all want to be accepted. There's people that are listening that'll be like, oh, I really think that they do CrossFit, right? Maybe some people that do CrossFit, like, oh, I wish that everyone in the class looked up to me. And you're like, they fucking do. Like, everyone that's in there is looking at you and going, there's that thing that you do that's really cool. I love the way that he unloads the bar. I love the way that she sets herself up for a pull-up. I love the shorts she's got on or whatever it is. Like, there are people that are doing that. And even if they're not, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, this game, life is a single-player game. I'm going to quote Naval Ravikant here.
I saw you put this one the other day.
Mate. It is so true, right? So you are born alone, you die alone, all of your experiences alone, all of your crosses to bear are alone. Before you arrived, no one cared. In 2 generations, you're gone and no one cares. Life is a single player game. So the point of that is you are getting one crack at this. So just fuck it, just do what you want. That doesn't mean go out and drink drive. That doesn't mean go and be irresponsible with how other people, like treating other people's emotions and the way that you enact with other people. What it does mean is just do the things. Do the things. You're here to live a life. Aubrey Marcus, fuck me. I really wanted to dislike the guy. One of the biggest podcasters on the planet. I didn't want to like him. And I sit down next to him, and I sit down and get him on the podcast, and his fucking several million pound house in Austin, Texas, where he's only living in Austin, Texas, because they don't pay any tax there. And I'm like, right, okay, Aubrey, let's see what you got. And I'll try and trip him up and say, hey, man, like, what's a good life mean to you? I'm like, get this bastard with this difficult question. And he just fucking unloads this pure wisdom. I'm like,
you listen to his book?
Not a fan of the book. Not a fan.
So I've really enjoyed it. Other than the bits where just... I don't want to say.
It's so hyper woke, man. But anyway, the point is, he said, life is meant for living, right? It's supposed to be an adventure. You're supposed to do the things. You're supposed to meet the people, have the conversations, take the drugs, not all the drugs, not abuse them, but use them. You're supposed to have the experiences, and you're supposed to be able to look back at the end of your life and go, fuck, I had an adventure, man. Like, this is worthy of a highlight reel. I didn't sell myself short. I didn't do less than I was capable of simply because it was easier. Like, every single moment, even this conversation that I'm having with you right now, like, this is the last time that I get to have this conversation with you. Even if we go and re-record this podcast tomorrow night, this is the last time that I get to have this version of this conversation with you. So why not immerse yourself in it fully? Why fucking... And hey, you said it earlier on, right? Like, I'm preaching, I'm not acting. Like, this is not me saying I've got my shit sorted, but it is me saying I know how everyone should, or at least this is the closest proxy to how I think we should all do it. It's like, fuck. Yeah. Why you're driving down the street on a beautiful morning and you're looking at your phone to see if there's something fucking good on Twitter, apart from the fact that it's dangerous as shit. Like, you're like, fuck, look, it's a really cool morning. This is the last chance you get to enjoy this very morning. And yeah, it's the route that you've gone to work 1,000 times before, and you're going to do it 1,000 times again. But it is still the final time that you get to live this very, very moment. So yeah, man, I think, from all of that, like, fucking back and forth and all the little wishy-washy stuff I've come up with there, it's just, if you try and tell the truth to yourself, to the people around you, be honest with what it is that you like, what you want from life, what you enjoy. And this is real hard. It's still taking me 4 years to work out who I am. Fucking hell, I've lived with this very consciousness has been in my brain for 31 years. How do I not know who I am? It happens, right? But yeah, start to tell the truth. That's a good place to begin.
Yeah. You're a cool dude, man.
Wow.
So I like it. It's good. It's good. It means that I get to hide my obvious inadequacies and just pretend I'm a good podcast host by talking to super cool people, mate. So you're making my job.
I am telling you, Daniel, for 140 episodes, that is precisely what I've done. So you're in good company, mate.
So yeah, cool. So that little passionate rant had literally completely thrown me off anything else that I was going to talk about. Let's do this instead. So, I talked to you before we started recording, and since you've been talking about some of the cool people that you've spoken to, the amazing, intelligent, interesting, humble, exciting, hyperbole gone on people that that you've spoken to. I know, for example, that Tim Ferriss did his first 100+ episodes of the Tim Ferriss Show, and then he took his best bits and he wrote Tools of Titans. And it's one of my favorite personal development books I've ever read in my life. Like, I love that book. Try and do a mini version, Chris.
Cool. Cool. I like it.
What bits might stand out that have remained actionable in your life to this day?
I love stuff like this. And again, this is you know what you're doing, man, because we can talk for ages, but people listen to podcasts, or at least the sort of audience I like to speak to, listen to podcasts for a tacit takeaway, an explicit thing that they can enact. It's like, oh, well and good, fucking Chris telling me to like enact the logos and tell my truth and stuff. But mate, what I really want to know is how I can make a really good sandwich in a Breville sandwich maker. Like, that's what I want to know. So we have a series on modern wisdom.
Someone asked me, how do you make a really good sandwich in a Breville sandwich maker? So
I'm afraid I'm not the man to answer that question. That is Johnny or Yusuf. My point is, we have a series called Life Hacks, right, which is precisely what we're talking about here. It's Tool of Titans for people with more autism than usual, which is all of us. And what we do, we come up with all this sort of stuff. Let me try and think. So certainly some of the high, like, real basic shit that, and this is all me.
By the way, let me just a quick look. What I remember, yeah. I want to do this because I want to link it because I like that you did this. Mm-hmm. You did a thing. Did you do it leading up to Christmas? Talking about essentially people can buy Christmas presents. Your best life hacks, as in items that you've been recommended. So
yes.
Let's try and remember for you to include that so I can share it.
So it's amazon.com/shop/modern wisdom. And it's just an Amazon storefront. I'll send you the link once we're done. So anyway, look, first thing that anyone needs to do, if you're a knowledge worker, turn the trackpad speed up on your MacBook as high as it'll go. If you do that, you'll move your mouse around the screen quicker. You'll be at least, I'm not even kidding, 5% quicker every day. Mm-hmm. Second thing, you want to sleep with your phone on the other side of the room, or ideally outside of your room. If you have a shower on a nighttime, set yourself a hard stop that once you've had a shower, you won't use your phone. The number of times that we roll over at bed at night, look at our phone on the side, we're like, oh, watch a bit more YouTube, I can't sleep, it's distracting. Oh, but I use my phone for an alarm. It's like radio alarm clocks have been around for literally like 50 years. Put the phone outside of the room. You will thank me. I promise you. It's the number one life hack that I've got. Sunrise alarm clock ties in with that. You can get one from Amazon for about £30. Just search Sunrise alarm clock. It wakes you up with light before it wakes you up with sound, which means that you've got cortisol increase. Moving forward into the morning time. Don't have coffee. At least caffeinated coffee within the first 90 minutes on the morning. Your adenosine receptors aren't active at that time. It's your adrenal system, not your adenosine system, that's working. So salt and lemon in water, you'll know that from Aubrey Marcus, Dan. That's perfect on a morning time. Again, do not check your phone for the first 30 minutes on the morning, ideally until you're ready and out the door, because you just don't need it. It's what Yusuf calls the fitness influencer anxiety cocktail, which is when you have coffee and superset high caffeine coffee and a Nocco with Instagram and sitting curled up.
Moving watching in the mornings, it's weird.
Yeah, it's dangerous, man. If you win the morning, you win the day. That's the way that I think. What else? So, I mean, straight off the bat, I think that everyone should have a period of productive sobriety. I think that if you take a break from alcohol for about 28 days or a little bit longer, maybe about 6 to 8 weeks, you just see so many benefits. You got more time, you got more money, you got more calories to spend on things that you truly care about. If you want to be guided through it, 6monthssober.com. Just go there. That's my online course. You know,
I
you
mean,
can
try and include everything. We'll do our best to remember it, or try and include everything.
There's a lot to remember. What else? Buy an automatic car. Fucking hell! If you're driving a car that's got a manual transmission, like you can, you know, like how have you ever seen how flamingos sleep? They sleep with one side of their body asleep at once. So you'll actually see, they're able to put one half of their body to sleep. So they can stand on one leg and then they'll put the other leg up and curl. So that's kind of what you get to do when you drive an automatic car, right? Left arm, left leg, just out the window. What if you're going to wear training shoes? Anyone that's lifting, buy Reebok Nano 9s. They're unbeatable.
Mate, I'm not a Reebok Nano guy. I'm sorry. I know you.
What you wear? Metcons
for the win, man.
Have you ever tried a pair on of Nanos?
Moving on to the next bit of your
on. Daniel, you are supposed to be a man of integrity.
I don't like them.
What do you mean? That is the 3-year-old in you that's throwing the toys.
The 3-year-old in me really likes some of the Metcons, and
I do not argue that the Metcons look cooler, but I'm not wearing training shoes. Romalios and legacy lifters look like the shoes
I don't wear lifters.
You get my point. Like, lifters look like what Donald Trump, Forrest Gump wore. Like, it's not about that. It's about the fact they're supposed to be there for performance. Anyway, my opinion. Get a steel shaker. Buy a steel shaker to use in the gym as opposed to a plastic shaker. So, metal shaker. They're available. The protein works. Yeah, but it's like you could also do protein shakes in it or whatever. And it just means like you can throw it on the floor. You don't care if, like, I've dropped a 10-kilo plate from like barbell height on it. Fine. Like if you'd done that to a plastic shaker, it would have just been obliterated right into 1,000 tiny pieces. What else? Have a greens powder so you can hack your way into getting more greens in. The Protein Works greens powder, tropical flavor is real nice.
Yeah, I've got the full one. I like that one a lot.
Real good, super easy. I'm just looking around my room. What else? Get a Kindle Paperwhite to improve your reading. I know it's maybe about £100, but if you want a present, if someone's like, oh, I want to get you a Christmas present. Oh, fuck, there we go. Apple AirPods. Jeez, like you.
Pause for a quick one. Hold that thought. So the Kindle thing.
Yeah.
So do this.
Yeah.
With your arm for me. Other one. You wear one of them.
Yeah.
I gave up on mine.
A whoop.
When I wore that, one of the things I took as a takeaway, based on the evidence that it gave me, if I read a paper book before bed, I sleep well. If I read on my iPad, I sleep bad. Is a Kindle different to reading on an iPad?
Yes. So there is a study which I could link you to, which shows the difference between e-readers and tablets on a nighttime. And I know this sounds like I'm just pulling, fortunately, like position studies out of my arse, but I promise you that I'm not, because I'm working very hard on telling the truth at the moment. So moving into some of the things that other people have said to me, some of the takeaways. I've got Ben Greenfield coming on soon, and that guy is an absolute motherfucker. So it'll be interesting. I mean, the one of the key life changes that is universal across everyone that I've spoken to, Aubrey Marcus, Tucker Max, people that have gone through real big pivots in their life. Like Tucker Max was essentially a leveled up version of what I was to a much more leveled up version of what I am now. And he managed to do it. And it's just learn to tell the truth. Like learn what it means to speak your own truth forward unashamedly, about everything, about your fears, about the weird sexual proclivities that you've got, obviously to the right audience. Don't start saying it at the dinner table with your family, but like
or on this podcast,
on this. Well, that's you could do a OnlyFans edition or something. But yeah, like talk about the things that interest you, right? Because that's learn to do that. Another one as well. If you're not having a conversation with a friend for 30 minutes a week, where it's just you and them, talking about something which interests either one or both of you without your phones, you're undernourishing yourself. Now, I get to do it, you get to do it because we have this wonderful platform that is podcasting. But if you are unable to, if you do not have that, you are as far as I'm concerned, undernourished in the same way as someone who doesn't get sunlight, someone who doesn't get any greens, or someone who doesn't get like a variety of protein sources or whatever it might be. So yeah, there's some things for you, Daniel. There's some things.
Top man. I wanted to touch on your fitness side of your life for two reasons. One, I believe you're passionate about CrossFit, as am I.
Yep.
I think you train at the gym in Newcastle that I've been eyeing up for years.
Tyneside. It's beautiful.
Is Tyneside the one that's huge and just beautifully kitted out?
Yeah, £500,000. Sorry, £250,000 on weights, plates, and bars.
Yeah, it is the one. So I know that he's a divisive character, but we won't get into that. Craig Ritchie. When I first started following Team Ritchie on YouTube,
Is that what got you into CrossFit?
No. I first got into CrossFit during Rich Fronin's third of his 4 in a row. Came out of love with CrossFit after. So I was martial arts training. I was at the gym. I was doing BJJ, Thai boxing, and trying to do CrossFit. And it's like my body ended up going nah. And it was like, well, CrossFit costs me a lot of money, and there's only so many classes I can go to. Long story short, put my focus on martial arts training. Mm-hmm. Had a girlfriend at the time, not the one I'm now fortunately to be with at the moment, and got the old, comfort disease, put on weight, stopped training, got back into CrossFit purely because the woman who was my PT owns a CrossFit gym, and have fallen back in love with it for the community aspect, for the the dramatic difference between going to the gym and you can not speak to somebody for 90 minutes because you've got your headphones in, and if you try and use a piece of equipment and leave it to go to the loo, you might come back and they're on your kit, and then that's it. Like, this negative scenario happens versus you go to a CrossFit gym and everyone supports one another.
Why does Craig Ritchie fit into this?
He was the one who was at your gym and did a vlog episode at Tyneside, and I watched that. When I first got back into training, I followed Craig, and I was like, "Oh my god, I have to go to that gym." So
I didn't know that he'd ever been. I brought Sonny up. Sonny came and stayed with me. We went out partying a little while ago, and he came up and trained, but I didn't know Craig had been.
It's like 3 years ago or more now. Mm-hmm. Before Craig was hanging out with Matt Fraser and Tier 2 me, a long time
big
before
time now, man.
Yeah, he is.
Boy's done good.
Yeah, well, like I say about him being divisive, you know what? I admire his progress and what he's made from something that, in the big scheme of things, is very niche, isn't it? YouTuber, CrossFitter. It's like
he's
done a phenomenal job.
I met him a couple of times. I met him at Body Power a couple of years ago. I shot for Romwad. I filmed for Romwad. He's filmed for Romwad a couple of times, and I haven't ever got huge. I've seen maybe 10 of his vlogs lifetime, like ever. Most of them in parts, but I think his content's great, and the guy did daily vlogs. Anyone who has people that want to give Craig shit about where he's at, I don't know whether people do, but if right, okay, what are the criticisms? What do they criticize him for?
So, I think the main thing is, speaking of plug-in previous podcast guests, I had a guy on called Sebastian Kane, another person no one's going to have ever heard of, but the guy's a wizard. He's a phenomenal dude. I've known him for many, many years. He's a psychotherapist, he's a kinesiologist, he's a sports therapist. He's so well-rounded. He's such a cool dude. He talked to me about one of my personal issues is lack of patience and going into things with an expectation. And I've noticed this as a flaw about myself. You go into things with an expectation, whether you're happy or unhappy, it's not based upon what the other person did. It's whether or not they happen to meet what your previous expectation was. People see Craig on YouTube videos, and he's a wonderful personality, I believe, on his YouTube videos. Craig, in my own humble opinion, is far more introverted than his YouTube persona. So people go into their interactions with Craig with an expectation that he's going to, for want of a better phrase, kiss their ass because he's on YouTube. And when he doesn't, when he's just his own normal personal human, they then they then project that I'm not good.
Yeah, no, I've heard.
And you know, like I know someone that loves to slate me for wearing his joggers. I'm wearing them now. I love his joggers. They're my favorite. I don't wear any other joggers, but Hustle made joggers. And I'm like, they say to me, you know, you're funding his lifestyle. And I'm like, mate, if you buy Nike joggers or Reebok joggers, what are you funding? Like, I'd rather support this individual guy that puts the effort in to care about his brand than I would. You know
on top of that. On top of that as well, mate, like the amount of ad revenue that boy is going to be generating off his YouTube channel, your £30 pair of joggers is a drop in the fucking ocean to him. So yeah man, I mean, so
anyway, to get back to it, you do CrossFit.
Yes.
I love your gym. And then the other thing, I'm going through something similar to you. My first CrossFit class, I did CrossFit tonight for the first time since I hurt myself doing CrossFit in St. Lucia when I was on holiday at Christmas.
Yeah.
Previous to that, I did 2 classes at San Francisco CrossFit. They're the only 4 organized fitness sessions I've done since August of last year because my back is off and on.
Me and you are kindred spirits in more than just podcasting.
Exactly. So
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, so I hurt my back. 2 years ago, pretty much 2 years ago to right now. And for a year and a half, didn't know what I was doing for my rehab. And it turns out I got 2 bulging discs. One of them has what's referred to as a fissure through the annulus, which literally means like a hole in the tire that's letting the air out. It's ugly injury for a back to get, just because. Unlike when you break a bone and it recalcifies in a much harder, with a much denser calcium in it, and it'll never re-break in that same spot again. That's the opposite of how a back works. A back, if it develops a disc bulge and especially fissure through the annulus, you then need to re-gristle the area to essentially fill the gap in. And there's probably almost always going to be some sort of weakness in that. So yeah, basically for the last 2 years, I've had to find out who I am if I don't have my fitness, which has been a very interesting and unique challenge because I haven't done a class in as long as I can remember. I haven't been able to train. What are you laughing about?
Mate, oh my God, that has been that.
We're just living kindred spirit lives, are we?
That's my daily thought. Thought. What do I do if I can't? And it's like people. I've tried to tell myself CrossFit is not the only thing you can do, but the 3-year-old child in my head goes, "No, fuck that. I want to do CrossFit." So like, and I'm like, I feel like you're so 31.
Yeah, correct. 32 next month.
So I've essentially got, let's say, 18 months on you, right? And you look in much better shape physically than me from what I've seen. But at the same time, I don't feel like at 33 years of age I should be sitting there going, I need to hang up my Metcons.
Mate, that's the thing. Like, it shouldn't be me. Why is it me? All this sort of stuff. And this has been me for 2 years, man. Like, I've not been able to do. I haven't been doing class. I've been training on my own in the corner, doing my fucking rehab for longer now in my CrossFit journey than CrossFit was.
Have you stayed in good shape?
So in absolute terms, probably all right, I guess, compared with the layperson on the street.
You look like you have. That's why I'm how have you stayed?
Oh, okay. Again, I'd trained for a long time. I'd done bro stuff for like best part of 10 years. Okay. And it's like there's just a set point. There's just a bottom end set point that you fall back to. Like the minimum shittest condition that you go to now for me is like borderline acceptable, like short at a beach.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, don't take the fucking Instagram too seriously either, man. Like I just have a very, very well curated repetition on libraries of old photos that I just keep on. If they were fucking time stamped, I'd get rumbled to hell. So, yeah, it's challenging, man. Who are you without your fitness? It's a question I've asked myself a couple of times this year. Like, I built myself around being the fit guy, being the health guy, being the big guy, being the lean guy amongst your friends. And then you're like, fuck, I can't do flexion or extension. I can't load up axially, so I can't put any load and do a squat or do a burpee or do anything at all without being in discomfort. So it's been challenging. I wish I could say that it was like this romantic, oh, I just gritted my teeth and got through it. You can't kick this dog when it's down and blah, blah. It's like, nah, it fucking sucks. I want to be in there throwing tin around with my mates. So on Bro Trip episode 2, where we're in Dallas, actually, we're in Houston. And on that, you see me kind of open up a little bit about it. And I say, like, I'm watching Ricky PR's is clean from blocks, I think, in this beautiful gym that we're in. And there was me over the far side doing bird dog and side plank because that's what I was supposed to do for part of my rehab. And I'm like, I want to fucking throw down with my friends. I want to be the guy who's getting after it. I'm supposed to be the strong guy. I'm only 31 years old. Why has it happened to me? But the bottom line is, like, this is the body that you've got. This is the body that you're playing with. And it's all that you can do, like I have to concede that there are some things, and I need to face the reality, there will potentially be some things I can never do again. I may have injured myself to the point where it would be dangerous for me to ever squat clean more than 75% of my max, or for me to ever do Olympic lifting under fatigue. I don't know if that is the case, but I need to accept the fact that it might be. And it hurts me to say it, but there's people out there that are fucking like quad paraplegics. There's people out there who lived a life that existed for 6 months, or there's babies that were so you think, right, okay, so what can I do? What are the things that I can do? Because there are some things that I can do. So for instance, my strict chest to bars are fucking monstrous, mate. Honestly, like I've worked up to 20 strict chest to bars with a longer eccentric than concentric portion. So I'm like, I'm fucking brilliant at this. When anyone want a strict chest to bar contest, like, and
what's
obviously
the today? 20 strict chest to bars for quality and time.
You know what I mean? Like that's the workout. So yeah, but it's difficult. Don't get me wrong. It's hard to get pumped about it, man. I miss throwing down with the guys. I watch everyone doing these big workouts, and I think, fuck, I'm on my own in the corner doing my shit again. But that is what it is. Like, I can't control the fact that my back is hurt. You can't control the fact that your back is hurt. Like, we have controllables in our lives. The controllables that we have are the effort that we put in and the response that we have to any given situation. And if I choose to fucking whine about it or think whatever, I wish it wasn't this way. Why is it this way? Woe is me, whatever. It doesn't help. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help the situation. So yeah, I've become, I've kind of flapped and toys went out the pram for a long while, but I stoically, I've learned where the controllables and the uncontrollables are. I have in control my rehab. If anyone's suffering with a back problem, Stuart McGill's Big 3 is by far the single best program. Yeah, I can see you writing it down. Stuart McGill's Big 3. I did a podcast with him. It's like episodes 70 or something, I think, maybe like 80 or something on the Modern Wisdom podcast. And I went all the way to Canada to see him, and he just basically told me the same thing that you can read in his book or just read online. Do the Big 3.
Okay. What is the Big 3?
Bird dog, side plank, and a modified curl up. If you search just Stuart McGill Big 3, it'll come up. It's a clever descending.
Is a modified curl up like a J curl?
I don't know what that is.
So J curl I got from Tools of Titans. I forget the guy's name now. He was the US Olympic gymnast coach. Does gymnastic bodies is his program. J curl is essentially, like if you touch your toes, but you stick your chin on your chest and you try and go down one vertebrae at a time.
No, it's a complete opposite of that. It's got nothing to do. No, but you'll see. Modified curl up, bird dog, side plank, and just do it every day. And I must have done it. I'm not even kidding, mate. I've spent hundreds of hours in those positions in the last 6 months. I'm fully dedicated. I've never been so dedicated to anything before in my life. Okay. But yes, that's some more words for you there.
I didn't even know what I originally asked you for us to get there. That's funny.
It was about fitness, and you knew that I'd been injured. You knew that I was training. You knew that I like CrossFit. I like it as a sport. I'm slightly bitter about the fact that it's contributed to my injury, but I love the fact that it made me go so hard and get so deep into something that I pushed my body's limits. Can it be done safely? Yes.
That's a tough question.
Is it often done safely? No. Should you probably practice a lot more with restraint when you're training, almost definitely.
Yeah.
Because
Ryan McKenzie said something either on your podcast or on somewhere else where he said, if you're not training for a competition, it was on your podcast, there's no reason not to dial it back for, like, he either said 3 weeks or 3 months and make every workout nasal breathing. And I interviewed a guy today, this morning, who's into steel mace flow.
all right, yeah.
Maces,
Proper Aubrey Marcus shit, that, isn't it?
Well, he went out on it in Texas and did their level 1 certification and hung out with a guy that there was
Primal Swolgia.
So it's not. Yeah, I didn't interview him, but he's like Newcastle's version, mate. Have you heard of FSI, which is in Newcastle somewhere?
Yes.
He works there. So I'm coming up on the 22nd to train, 22nd of Feb to train with him.
Cool.
So I might try and make it over to Reebok CrossFit Tyneside as well, if I can handle that physically in the same day, which is unlikely. Mate, we're about an hour in, so I normally wrap up with 3 questions.
Hit me.
Physically, what do you value to remain well?
How do you mean? Can you elaborate on the question?
Yeah, so we're the Wellness Academy podcast. To take care of yourself physically, what are your non-negotiables? That makes sense.
Sleep. So I find that when I'm underslept or overslept, my energy or mood change really, really drastically. So my periods of depression that I've had in my life, almost all of them have coincided with changes in sleep. And I don't know whether that's cart or horse there, but the point is that the two are linked. Sleep. Probably next after that is exercise. I need to move every day. And then after that, increasingly recently, I've realized that it's probably going for a walk and being outside. So I don't have a dog, which would be a beautiful hack to ensure that I did this every day. But I've got myself into the routine of having a walk maybe 2-3 times a day. I realized, like, for 10 years, from the age of 18 to 28, I was just spending no fucking time in nature. So yeah, it's the basics, man. It's nothing sexy. I haven't got any.
But I like hearing it when you hear the basics and the unsexy shit from loads of people, your brain does start to go.
It's because it's the truth, man. It's not the Breville sandwich maker solution, but it is what everyone. So two good quotes about sleep. I had Christy Ashwanden, the author of Good to Go, on the podcast, who literally wrote a whole book about recovery. And I was like, "What are your top 5 tips for recovery?" And she said,
"What was the name?"
Christy Ashwanden. And her top 5 tips for recovery were sleep, 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 and sleep. That's it. So she was literally, and then Matthew Walker, sleep is the number 1 legal performance enhancing drug, which is being underused by every athlete on the planet. There you go. Like 2 people that are both absolute motherfuckers saying just sleep a bit more. So yeah, get your sleep.
One cool thing that Kelly Starrett said when I did the little video with him outside of San Francisco CrossFit, was he said, if you go to bed half an hour earlier every night for the rest of it, like for the next year, like it equates to something like almost an extra month's worth of sleep. It's ridiculous. It's something mad. Okay, so you might have already covered it, this next question, because that so often happens, which I also like, that people taking care of their physical wellness covers their mental wellness more often than not. But mentally, is there anything else that's a go-to, a non-negotiable to take care of?
So yeah, like further up the stream, sleep's a big part of it. That impact on how I feel mentally. If I was to do one thing, it would probably actually be read now, ahead of journal, ahead of meditate, and ahead of do breath work, which are kind of my other 3 go-to things. And that's presuming that I've got go for a walk, training, and sleep sorted as well, because it would be those in that reverse order as well. Yeah, it would probably be read. I'm finding it very therapeutic at the moment to get myself out of my head. And there's something that resets the level of stimulus that I'm used to very nicely when I read now.
Fiction or non-fiction?
So I read fiction by night and non-fiction by day.
Okay.
That's the little rule I've got for myself. I don't want to activate that kind of idea engine last thing at night. It's meant that I've had some fucking mental dreams recently, but Ernest Shackleton's Sir Ernest Shackleton going across the Antarctic in Endurance. Alfred Lansing wrote it. It's called Endurance. Unbelievable. First crossing of the Antarctic by Sir Alfred Shackleton. Like, what a book. 300 pages of just some guy in the Antarctic. Mint. So read.
I'm rereading Harry Potter, so I think we're on a different level there. Last one then. Overall, to maintain some sort of overall wellness in one's life, some balance, what do you do to try and, as we said, juggle all these plates and be up at 10 o'clock at night doing a podcast? And I've got
to record and upload tomorrow's episode as well. This is behind the curtain. In 8 hours, I've got an episode that needs to be published, and I still haven't done it. Fuck, man. Like, the basis for this is tell the truth. Like, just try and tell the truth as much as you can. Learn what it is. Be unashamed with yourself. Have some people around you that can support you and that are good for you, and be friends with people that want the best for you. Support them in what it is that they want to do. Find some sort of a passion, and really force yourself into it. I don't think you can go far wrong, man. Like, if you do the things that we've spoken about in this podcast, I really don't think that you can go far wrong.
Just to add to that as well, because I know that, like, I feel like it would be an easy thing maybe for people listening to that bit to sit there and go, what if I haven't really got anybody that supports me that way? I would say, first thing first, be the person that supports people that way. If you want something or someone in your life, embody it first and foremost. Do you know what I mean?
You know what the average number of Americans, the most common answer by Americans when asked, how many people do you have to turn to in a crisis was? So the most common answer 30 years ago was 5. The most common answer now is 0. The most common answer for how many people do you have to turn to? That's not the average. The average is a little higher, but the most common answer is 0. And you're like, holy fucking shit. There's other people out there, man. Like, we're doing this podcast, right? We're connecting. We're telling people that they need to be nicer and kinder to each other, and fucking be honest and be truthful. And especially as a guy, like, it does not mean that you're some like soppy beta male who's not going to get birds.
Too right.
Yeah. So here's what it is.
I've always done my very best to maintain that if I want my partner to be a certain way, I've got to be that way first. That's it. And I'd like to think I'm doing pretty well. So the chick that's probably in bed now, like, trying to block out my voice,
sound of your dulcet tones coming through the wall,
is all the things I would want. And I'd like to think that she wants to be in my life because I embody those things for her first and foremost. Do you know what I mean? The last thing I always do on the end of a podcast is ask you to let people know where to find you, what's going on, what do they keep up with. That list is huge for you.
It's easy, man. It's easy. All that I care about, Modern Wisdom, wherever you listen, search Modern Wisdom. It'll come up. YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Podcasts, whatever. And at Chris Will X, wherever you stalk me, whatever social media you use, do that. Send me a DM, send me some money, send me a present, do whatever you want. Like, that's it, man. It's been a pleasure. I really, really enjoyed it, Daniel. I think what you're doing with the podcast is great, mate. I'm going to look forward to watching it grow over the next few weeks. And yeah, man, it's real good. You're doing good work, man. You should be proud of it.
I am.
Good.
Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate this, man. Once again, thank you so very, very, very much for coming on. And a shout out to Rick for when he listens to this, for putting me in touch with you.
There you go. Thanks, man.
Cheers, mate.